dear classmates. Good morning, dear teacher. Today we're going to present our booklet about inclusive EFL activities. Um, we decided to choose the second grade and for an A1 level. So, first of all, welcome to this booklet. This booklet is designed to support educators in creating an inclusive and engaging learning environment for students with different needs. In the next slides, you will find practical tips, adaptable techniques, and inspiring approach to help you unlock the potential of every learner. So, let's empower our students to succeed in English and beyond. As first part, we have a short quote that it means inclusive education ensure equal learning for all students. Every child deserves access to quality education. So as I mentioned, this booklet provides activities designed for students with different abilities and learning styles. Also, we provide activities adapted for diverse learning needs. We focus on areas like the alphabet, recognition, numbers, colors, animals, and also personal information. All are adapted for inclusive classroom with different activities to uh, face these needs that we have as teachers. Okay, so let's continue with the
Inclusive education has become a major priority in many countries, including Ecuador. According to the National Council for Equality of Disabilities, CONADIS, more than 540,000 people in Ecuador live with some type of disability, and around 9.78% are school aged children, which represents more than 50,000 students. Many of these students study in regular classrooms. This means teachers must be prepared to adapt their teaching strategies so that every student can participate and learn. In Ecuador, English is taught as a foreign language from early grades. However, students with disabilities may face additional challenges such as difficulties with attention, communication, or sensory processing. For this reason, inclusive teaching strategies are essential to make learning accessible for everyone. Why did we design this activity manual? We designed these activities to support English teachers and teacher training students who sometimes struggle to adapt their classes for students with special educational needs. It is important to understand that adaptation does not mean reducing the content. Instead, adaptation means finding different ways to teach the same content so that all students can understand and participate. In this presentation, I will focus on one specific learning need, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder or ADHD. What is ADHD and how can it affect learning in the classroom? Okay, hyperactivity disorder is a neurodevelopmental condition that affects attention regulation, impulsive control, and activity levels. Students with ADHD may have difficulty concentrating for long periods, move frequently, or struggle to follow long explanations. To better understand how these activities support the students, we include classroom cases in our manual that represents real situations teachers may encounter. For example, Juan is a second grade student who often moves around the classroom and has difficulty staying focused during long explanations. After evaluation by the psychologist, Juan was diagnosed with ADHD. However, his teacher noticed that he participates much more when lessons involve games or movements. For that, one activity I designed is called the Alphabet Action Game, which uses total physical response. The objective is for students to recognize and pronounce letters of the English alphabet throughout movement. Here, students practice listening and vocabulary skills using simple materials like alphabet flashcards, softball, and the alphabet poster. The teacher first reviews the alphabet with flashcards, then the students stand in a circle. The teacher throws a softball to a student and says a letter. And then the student must say a word that start with the letter, for example, A for apple, B for ball, or C for cat. Then the student performs a small action related to the word. For example, bounce like a ball or crawl like a cat.
Activity number 2, we have it is for yeah, it is color sorting game. First, it is for SD learners. You know, SD learners are is autism disorder spectrum disorder. Sorry. So first we have the objective is identify and classify colors in English using structured sorting activities. As you may know, we need to work while we are working with SD learners. We need to have a structured routine. Also, we have to give clear instructions in order to avoid some misunderstanding. Also, we need to give predictable tasks, as I mentioned before. So we need to keep our routines predictable and consistent through the activity. One example, for example, I have a colleague in my school that she worked with pictograms in order to have like establish a clear routine. So the learner with SD knows what he going to do every day. For example, first he enters the class, he greet the classmates, then they have to complete an activity. After that, they have a short break to play with their toys. Then they have another activity. After that, they have like a lunch, and then he goes home. So that's with the use of pictogram. Sorry, he can knows and establish a structured routine. Then we have, in this case, we have the color sorting game, which is a structure sorting reduced entity and its comprehension for SDA learners. Also, we need to use strong visuals in order to provide examples before asking students to sort colors independently. I mean, for example, we can present use Relaya. For example, we can say, look at the board. What color is the board? It's white. Or present something like the markers. Okay, what color is this marker? I mean, we can say it's green, red, or blue. So we need to use present like examples before asking students to do this activity. Then we can present individually the colors, some flashcards, or some visual support in order to help learners to pronounce correctly each color. So we need to go independently, one color by one color, not try to mix all of them because we are going to confuse the learner. It will be a huge struggle at the end. So we can continue to the next slide, please. Here we have like some example. For example, sorting activity. In this case, we can use a bowl, a box, in order to help students to do this activity. For example, we have the blue, we have the red, the green, and the orange. Obviously, we need to go color by color and don't try to mix all of them at once. So as you can see, also we can use Relaya, as I said before. For example, present something blue and then bring or they show something like that represents that color. Okay, let's continue to the next activity, please. Could we move? Okay, here we have the animal picture march. First, it is for hearing impairment. Also, we are working with second grade learners. The skills that we're working on or focus on is speaking and the sub-skill vocabulary. First, we need to understand what is hearing impairment. Hearing impairment is the ability of individuals to hear sounds, inability of individuals to hear sounds adequately. This may be due to improper development, damage, or disease to any part of the hearing mechanism. So in this case, teachers need to use visual resources like flashcards, images, and also written instructions. In this case, we have the animal picture match. So learners have to recognize and read animals' names through visual matching activities. Also, the teacher needs to face the students when speaking and use clear gestures. Sometimes we can use gestures to help students understand better what we are saying. Yeah. Also, visual learning compensates for hearing limitations and supports comprehension using written words, labels with animals, pictures for visual reinforcements. Sometimes we need to write on the board. Obviously, it needs to be clear and short, because if it is too long, the learner may be confused and don't understand anything that you are saying. So first, we need to use flashcards and present the key vocabulary that we're going to teach. We can also practice here like some pronunciation. A student may understand the correct pronunciation, and then we can continue with the practice. Could you continue with the next slide, please? Here is an activity sample. This is animal flashcards. As you mentioned, teacher, that we need to use real pictures and try to avoid like cartoons, because learners try to connect real life examples. So, for example, we have like a real picture of a cow or a pig, or so of the animals that we're going to present. That's all I can say. Thank you.
I don't know if you can hear me now, teacher.
Yeah, Kimber.
I'm sorry.
Yes,
I was talking the whole time and I didn't. I don't know what happened. I'm sorry. So Marcy, could you go back to activity number 2, please?
Okay, all right.
Thank you. So just in advance, I'm gonna apologize. I'm at work and they're in recess, so you might hear screams. So I'm really, really sorry. So our second activity that we designed is called Number Builders. So this activity was designed specially for intellectual disability. Let's remember that intellectual disability is affected usually with cognitive functioning, adaptive behaviors, or both of them together. It's also worth mentioning that usually most of the students have a lower age related to their mind compared to their chronological age, actually. Okay, so they have problems with what? With problem solving, following instructions, reasoning. So they take much more time to digest all of the information that we're having, okay, and that we teach them. So the objective of this activity was to teach numbers from 1 to 20 and to match them to their correct quantities, okay? So it's important to always use visual aids, okay? And always have simple instructions, because as I mentioned before, comprehending or following instructions is very difficult for them, okay? So let's remember that these activities are all designed for second graders. So here, what does this activity consist of? It's having number flashcards, okay? And also by hand with Realia, okay? So this activity helps manipulating objects, okay, while learning at the same time. So it's better for them to comprehend and to connect both Realia with the learning topic, okay? So it makes them understand better and also to retain this sub-skill, which is vocabulary, okay? So what does the activity consist of? The activity is basically having the number flashcards there, making them repeat. First, obviously, introducing the numbers, okay, with the flashcards. Later, making them repeat the numbers. Then, placing a number flashcard on his or her desk and giving them Realia. I don't know, beans, pencils, whatever things that we have in class in that moment, or that it's physically appealing for them to count. So for example, if I put the flashcard number 5, the student will have to what? Count, I don't know, 5 beans and put them near the flashcard for them to understand, and they have to count and repeat the number. So we're repeating and making them comprehend and connect 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, for example. So that's basically this activity. So as I told you before, a tip is to use beans or things that they can manipulate or things that are visually appealing for them. So that's activity number 2. Marce, could you go to number 5 if I'm not mistaken? Yeah. It's Christian's turn.
Okay, so thank you, Martin. So now we have the following activity. Activity number 5 is about pronoun cards game. Well, the objective of this activity is the learner can use properly the pronouns I, you, he, she in simple sentences. So, first of all, we decide to work with this activity, especially for students with physical disabilities. To get a better idea, physical disabilities refer to conditions that affect mobility, motor skills, or physical coordination. Usually, students with these disabilities or conditions may experience difficulty moving around the class, reaching some objects, maybe undo other activities like or applying different approaches like TPR. But on this part, we have a little bit change. On this part, we use digital resources as flashcards, so the students with these conditions can work on their desk, or maybe they can work with digital resources, like as I mentioned, digital flashcards. For example, here we have, I don't know if you can see on this part. Okay, thank you, Kim. So on this part, we have different flashcards, let's say like that, with different pronouns. Okay, so here, for example, we have I, it's me, so the student can relate. Okay, it's me. So now let's continue with the next one. Look at the partner next to you. Okay, so his name is, I don't know, Luis Juan. Okay, so we can change it by you when you talk directly to someone. Okay, look for some a guy, maybe, or a girl. So we can use he or she for replacing them. So they can use this kind of flashcards even with plural and animals. Like, okay, we have a cat or we have a pencil in our classroom. So we can use it to replace with it. Now, when we work especially with students with motor skill disabilities, we have to take into account that the space is going to be a barrier, but we can change it a little bit. Okay, so we can use it as well as a group form. Okay, we can include these children, make them in groups, and we have the pronoun we. Okay, now we can also work with you as a plural form and they. So it's important to mention that we have some teacher tips. Something important is to use large and easy to read pronoun cards with a visible letter, let's say like that schools can point to. Another tip is that allow digital participation options for students with limited mobility. Now, here we have a different section. We know that some students or some classes or schools are not available to have digital resources. What is another option? We can use post-its or just print this kind of digital resources and make them work in our classroom. Okay, so let's continue with the next activity. Now we have a little bit for second graders. We have introducing myself. We know that it's the first topic that we must master in our students in order to use simple sentences to introduce themselves. They can present their names, their age, or maybe their likes. So, on this part, we are going to use chunks for presenting information and also for helping the students to understand and practice speaking in the classroom, something that is important to develop at a very early age. So, here I have an example of um, a kind of activity that we can do. For example, you can see like this. Here we have, I don't know, let me see. Okay, on this part, I have my name. Okay, I have my name, I have an age, and I have a place. So, what is the aim of this activity? Is the student wonder, okay, Christian, okay, maybe it's a name, maybe it's your name, it's your brother name, we have a number, 25 years old. Okay, maybe it's the number of cats that you have, or maybe it's your age. Make them guess. And finally, a place. For example, cañar. It can be a food. It is a food. It is an animal. It is a place. Where is it? Make them ask questions. And then we can go presenting little by little the chunks. Okay? Like this. Okay? My, okay, name is, and finally we have the name, Christian. Now we can change it now with the student with your own name, okay? We can do it with your own name. Another thing, we can do it with the age, for example. I am 25. Okay, here we have the number that I present previously, and obviously years old, okay? So, and also you can use pictures as well. For example, this is a picture of me, and also with the whole quote. And obviously with the last one, I am from Cañar or I live in Cañar, present them the picture. Something important to develop these activities that make the students speak at their own time, at their own speed. And finally, we can use resources to point or let the students point the words that are difficult to pronounce. So in this way, we can develop the speaking.
Thank you, Christian, for your presentation. And now it's Gabby. Gabby, are you ready?
Hi, hi everybody. Yes. Okay, so now I'm gonna present the activity number 7. Okay, could you please go to the
Yeah.
next slide, please?
Yes, I
Okay.
can.
Okay, so the activity number 7 is about is for the second grade too. So the learning object is identified by basic facts about Ecuador using multisensory materials. Okay, so the type of special need here is the visual impairment. Okay, so I'm gonna
Okay.
describe the ability. Okay, so the visual impairment includes partial or complete loss of vision. Students with visual impairments rely more heavily or auditory of tactile information to understand concepts. In language learning, teachers should provide clear verbal explanations, audio materials, and tactile resources to ensure accessibility. Okay, so let's the point the classroom case. Okay, so for example, Pedro is a second grade student who has low vision, although he can read large text with the help of assistive tools. He sometimes struggles to see small images or text reading on the word. Pedro participates actively in class discuss and enjoys listening activities. Therefore, using audio descriptions and tactile learning materials helps him understand new concepts more effectively. Okay, so the object here is the students will identify basic facts about Ecuador. Okay, so the materials that we are going to use here is the audio recording describing Ecuador and tactile map for Ecuador. of Ecuador. Sorry. So let's the instructions that the teacher will provide is, for example, the teacher plays an audio recording describing Ecuador. Students listen carefully. Okay, so the students are going to listen carefully, and then the student explore a tactile map showing Ecuador location, and then finally the teacher asks simple questions. Okay, for example, questions like, "Where is the Ecuador? What language do we speak?" And then the teacher provides some tips, like read information slowly and clearly. Okay, so and then allow students to explore materials although touch, through touch. Sorry, and then the teacher provide an audio recordings whenever possible. Okay, so this here this is a basic activity that will help the students. Okay. Okay, so let's go to the next slide, please. The activity number 8. Yeah. So the activity number 8 is we are going to talk about my city. Okay, so the special needs here, the type of special need here is autism spectrum disorder, ASD. Okay, so we all know that the autism spectrum disorder affects communication, social interaction, and flexibility of behavior. Many students with autism benefit from structured routines, visual instructions, and predictable classroom activities. Okay, so in this case, we are going to point a special case that is Mateo is a second grade student diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. He prefers work individually and become uncomfortable when instructions are unclear and when activities change suddenly. However, Mateo shows strong interest in visual materials and structured tasks. Using visual sentence frames help him understand how to express ideas. Here, the object here is the students will describe where they live using simple sentences. Okay, so the skill we are going to work here this is the speaking and vocabulary. So the materials that we are going to use here is the city images and sentence structure cards. Okay, so for example, I live in Sangolquí and I live in Ecuador. So the instructions that the teacher will provide is the teacher introduces vocabulary related to cities, and then the students observe pictures of different places. Then the students complete the sentence frames, and the students finally they are going to read their sentences out loud. So, like as a tip that the teacher will provide here, are like the teacher will provide visual instructions and also maintain predictable classroom routines and avoid giving multiple instructions at once. Why it helps ASD? Visual frame support structure and uh, sorry, the visual frame support structure and predictable reducing anxiety of ASD learners. So this is all for this kind of activity for ASD.
Another activity I designed is the Classroom Scavenger Hunt, which focuses on classroom vocabulary. The objective is for students to identify and name classroom objects such as book, desk, pencil, chair, etc. The teacher first introduces the vocabulary, then the teacher calls out an object, for example, find the book, and also here we can use colors like find a red book. Students move around the classroom to find the object and say the word aloud. This activity is especially helpful for students with ADHD because it keeps them physically active, it uses short instructions, and it makes learning interactive. We also include teacher tips in our manual, like use short commands, encourage teamwork, and keep the activity fast-paced. This type of activities works well for students with ADHD because movement keeps channeling their energy while keeping them focused on the learning task. Thank you.
Okay, so our last activity is daily routines. It's very similar to the one that I presented before about numbers and from 1 to 20. So here, basically, we have to use large flashcards. They can be digital or physical. It depends on our possibilities. We have to show them a sequence. It's important for intellectual disability to have a sequence established for them to understand and break down these activities for him to understand. First, we have to focus on one, then the other one, and that, and so on. So basically, I show the pictures as the daily activities, make students repeat. Then we arrange the pictures in order first, and then students can give small ideas or just complete ideas with their personal information. I wake up at 6, for example. So this is our last activity. Now, for conclusions, okay, the main idea of our booklet was to basically help teachers be inclusive with helping them for intellectual disabilities, all type of special needs, to create paths for them to also accomplish, not just leave them behind because we don't know how to work with them. Also, using interactive multisensory activities can help teachers support the students with diverse learning needs while still teaching English at the same time, and also making it even different and creative for other students who do not have these special needs. And last, our activity manual aims to help teachers create more inclusive English classrooms, like I just mentioned before, where all students can work. Special needs, no special needs students, and they feel confident for this. So thank you very much, teacher. That was our booklet, and we hope you enjoyed it.
Indeed, I did. Thank you for your presentation. You really explained with many different activities. If I'm not mistaken, it was Christian that showed the activity were in their phone as well. So it was really, really, really good. I think it was useful for all of us. And now it's some activities that we can also implement in our classes. So thank you very much, Kimberly, and all the team number 12.
So, thank you, teacher.